Without any announcement, without any warning, this moment quietly shook the global scene. Welcome to the effect. The first thing to clarify is that the invitation wasn't exclusive. All the members were invited, as has happened on many other occasions. The absence of some members wasn't due to personal decisions related to dates or private meetings, but rather to prior commitments clearly mentioned by them. Taehyung didn't attend because he had a dinner planned. This was stated directly when Namjoon asked him why he hadn't come. Jeon, for his part, explained that he couldn't attend because he had a wedding the next day, reason enough not to stay until the early hours of the morning. Even Suga, who did go to the house, left early. Even so, a photo was taken of him, and Suga himself clarified that it was already very late, around 4 in the morning, which is why he decided to leave. Despite this, the jokers twisted the situation into something completely different, presenting it as if it were a date between Jungkook and Jimin. And as always, they omitted important statements. Jimin himself has said that he doesn't even see Jungkook for drinks in Korea. That statement completely changes the interpretation of events, but it was conveniently ignored to maintain a narrative that has no basis in reality. The reality is clear. Jungkook and Jimin mainly meet for work reasons. The company needs them to work together, and that explains their shared presence at certain times. However, many people decided to alter the narrative, making it seem like there was a private date when in reality it was a meeting to which all the members were invited, as is usually the case. This type of distortion is a constant repetition of changing the facts and adapting them to a version that favors their non-existent ship. The company uses the image of Jungkook with Jimin in specific projects, and that ends up being sold to an audience that believes in something more, when the real situation is much simpler. They are together for work. Jimin himself made it clear that they don't even see each other to go out in Korea, but that detail was downplayed or completely omitted. Meanwhile, Taekook presents itself in a completely different way. It hasn't needed the constant intervention of staff members filming them or exaggerated situations to attract attention. The moments when Taehyung and Jungkook have been seen together usually occur in more private spaces, without a forced narrative surrounding them. There are no obvious attempts to stage scenes for the public or to sell an artificial image. What is shown happens naturally without excessive exposure. The main difference lies in the consistency of the facts. In Taekook's case, it hasn't been necessary to alter contexts or ignore statements to support what is observed. The shared moments that have come to light have occurred spontaneously, and that is what many recognize as authentic. It's frustrating to see how many people keep twisting the story and defending the wrong person, just to stick to an idea they already have in their heads. The facts are clear. Jimin was the one who held Taehyung's hand. It wasn't the other way around. Taehyung didn't pull him, didn't try to hold him back, didn't make any gesture to stop him. His body language and attitude showed that he wanted to go his own way. When someone decides to leave and the other person keeps holding on tightly, the most logical thing to do is let go. That's basic, something everyone understands. If someone doesn't let go and ends up getting hurt, that consequence stems from their own decision, not from the person trying to get away. Even so, many people insist on portraying Taehyung as the one responsible. They paint him as the villain in a scene where he had no control and no intention of causing harm. This way of telling the story isn't new. There's a pattern that repeats itself every time Taehyung is involved in an awkward or confusing situation. The story is twisted to protect some and point the finger at him. A clear example occurred during a concert when Taehyung was pushed from behind and nearly fell off the stage. It was a dangerous moment that could have ended very badly. However, what was disseminated afterward was a completely different version, where the risk he faced was downplayed and everything was transformed into a pretty scene, full of praise for someone else. Concern for Taehyung's safety completely disappeared. Now something similar is happening. Taehyung does nothing wrong, he doesn't even actively participate in the conflict, and yet he ends up bearing the blame because someone else wouldn't let go. This difference in treatment is obvious. The idea of responsibility only appears when it serves to justify a specific story. When it doesn't fit, Taehyung becomes the easy scapegoat. Many people are already tired of seeing Taehyung blamed for situations he neither caused nor worsened. He is expected to have infinite patience, silence, and understanding, while others are allowed to get away with everything. Amidst all of this, the relationship between Taehyung and Jungkook becomes a source of support for many. There's no need to exaggerate gestures or fabricate scenes. Their connection is evident in the way they gaze into each other's eyes, how they support one another through difficult times, and the calm they exude when together. Taehyung finds a safe haven in Jungkook, someone who understands him without words, and Jungkook demonstrates genuine, constant, and protective care towards him. This relationship sustains itself with respect, love, and a closeness that feels real. Therefore, when attempts are made to tarnish Taehyung's image, this perception is also unfairly affected. Acknowledging the truth just as it happened is an act of respect, not only towards him but also towards the relationship he shares with Jungkook, and towards those who value an honest and fair narrative. Over time, Taehyung and Jungkook's relationship has entered a more private phase. These days, they don't share as many moments in front of cameras or make as many obvious gestures, and that doesn't reflect poorly on their bond. On the contrary, many people understand that a strong connection doesn't need to be constantly on display to thrive. Some relationships grow inwardly, becoming more nurturing and deeper, and that's precisely what's evident here. Those who have followed their story from the beginning recognize a solid foundation, built over time, shared experiences, and shared life. This foundation doesn't disappear simply because external dynamics change, or because attention shifts to other matters. The connection between Taehyung and Jungkook remains, even when it's not in the spotlight. Sometimes it's visible in small gestures, other times in shared silences, but it's always present. Their closeness doesn't depend on constant displays. It's evident in the trust they have in each other, in the natural way they support and understand one another. Taehyung finds in Jungkook a space where he can be himself without filters. Jungkook in turn shows constant attention, a form of care that doesn't seek the spotlight but feels firm and sincere. This dynamic speaks of a bond built on mutual respect and an affection that needs no explanation. When a relationship reaches this point, it ceases to be something noisy and becomes something stable. It's no longer about seeking attention, but about maintaining it, and that has enormous value. What Taehyung and Jungkook share isn't sustained by external opinions, but by what they have built together. That's why when attempts are made to distort Taehyung's image, the perception of that bond is also unfairly affected. Telling the facts clearly is a form of care, not only for him but also for the story he shares with Jungkook. Talking about Taekook as a relationship based on love doesn't mean creating a fantasy. It means acknowledging a real process visible throughout the years. A bond that went through different stages, adapted to personal and professional changes, and grew stronger in the face of adversity. The affection that unites them didn't weaken with distance or time. It transformed into something more mature and conscious. This kind of relationship doesn't need daily validation. It's recognized in constancy, loyalty, and the way they choose each other even when circumstances change. Some connections don't break because they were born from a place of authenticity, and Taekook embodies precisely that. A union that remains strong because it has deep roots. Everything surrounding that relationship, external comments and other people's interpretations, ends up being noise. It comes and goes, changes shape and loses strength. The essential remains intact. The real moments they shared, the glances, the decisions, and the mutual support continue to be part of their story. They don't need to be exaggerated to have value, because their meaning lies in what they represent. Taekook shows a relationship that evolved alongside them. More discreet, more protected, but just as important. For many people, this form of love is clear and meaningful. It's not about idealizing, but about recognizing a connection that grew honestly and remains strong, even when it doesn't seek to be seen.